How's everyone doing tonight? It's nice out. Does it? Oh yeah. Echo. This is my echo. No one else echo. Please. Okay. Welcome to Nice Moves. This is our, what month is it? April? This is our April event. Man, this echo is really throwing me off. I have to talk into here for the stream, but we won't be echoing. So I'll still talk loud, and the people on YouTube will just have to turn it down. Okay, welcome to Nice Moves, our April meeting with Alicia Allen. And I'm your host, Emery. If you have never been to a Nice Moves event before, can you please raise your hand? Because I know there's some fresh faces here. Holy moly. That is amazing. Thank you for coming. Everyone, even if you've been to one, you get a round of applause. So if you're not familiar, Nice Moves is we cultivate an inspiring and diverse motion community in the Twin Cities and surrounding regions, which usually just kind of means stout. But, we got some people from Rochester, I know. Anyway, agenda. Very official. Upcoming talk. Our upcoming talk next month is, the date is to be determined, but it will be with Mike Owens, who is going to talk about how to pitch an animated TV show. We're trying to get it ready in time so that there's time to pitch for this upcoming event called you spell it with ITV and a fest. So this festival, it's independent television, and the idea is that you can submit your pitch. So then if your pitch is accepted, you get to pitch it in front of network executives like HBO and, oh, we have a hand. Yes, that is in Duluth. That is in a surrounding region. But the deadline for pitches is the end of May. So we're trying to get Mike Owens up here, not next week, but maybe the week after or the week after that. So you still have a couple weeks to get your pitch ready. Next on the agenda. Oh, we have a couple spotlights. We took a little hiatus because things were kind of crazy for a little bit, but we're back with some spotlights. So we have one, Greg Stewart, who is probably in Canada right now, because he went freelance about 11 months ago and somehow ended up starting an animation studio with like two of the coolest people in our industry. So go ahead and read that to kind of figure out how he tricked people. I mean, how he how he found some really nice people that fit with him, and it's in there. It shouldn't be coming out of here. We have another spotlight for stop motion. If we have any stop motion heads in here, Adam Loomis is an independent animator who was awarded a $10,000 grant to research how to make stop motion armatures. So we talk about that in here. He actually machines all these parts himself, except the screws. So like these little plates, he cuts them out of larger bits of plate, and the sockets, they're all like little ball joint sockets, so he has to put the little thing on a lathe and it spins really fast, and it does all sorts of cool stuff. But you should read that, and if you're interested to find out more, he has a workshop coming up May 24th, and you just sign up here, which you can find through here, which is nicemoves.com/spotlight. And that's cool. He also talks about grants a little bit. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to get a grant for independent animation, he talks about it. Art of World. Okay, so now we're just doing upcoming events. We got Art of World coming up, which is, there's going to be an Art of World event here at MTN. Everybody should come because MTN is awesome. And Nice Moves might be tabling, just kind of showing off demo reels and kind of talking about what we do. So come check it out. Oh, wow, there's a stop motion workshop coming up, huh? Oh, an I.O. Festival. I don't know if we have a lot of technical people here, but there's like a lot of coding and stuff going on there. And they have some, I know there's one talk that I'm really interested in. It's called live coding, where it's kind of like they make music and motion graphics in real time because they're sitting there coding it in some sort of magical program. I don't know. It looks awesome. Yes, Tara, we have a request for a plug. So for the streamers, there's going to be an After Effects user group meeting coming up. Date to be determined. But it is in May for sure. Oh, and we have a few calls for submission. Speaking of grants, we found some grants that everyone should probably apply for because it's kind of like free money. All you have to do is dream up your dream project and describe it in words, which I know is hard because we like to animate and make things move, but that's all they're asking for in exchange for upwards of 30 grand. So I think you can come up with some words for $30,000. Not that it's all about the money, but making art takes money. So I will take your money, please. Oh, that sounded so greedy. But yeah, these are all project-specific grants. This first one is, like I said, it's up to $30,000. It can be for less. This next one is $2,500, and this one is up to $10,000. And this is the exact grant that Adam Loomis was awarded last year or a year or two ago. So if you have any questions about applying to this, you should check out this workshop. And Adam Loomis, he's a nice guy. Any other requests for plugs? Because I think we're moving on to the next thing. Yes? What is Fenfair? Fem Fair or Fen Fair? Oh, okay. So, for the stream, After Hours Art Collective just released a new zine, and they're going to be at Fem Fair, when was it? May 5th. And if you're not familiar with After Hours Art Collective, check out our previous Nice Moves, which is archived on the MTN YouTube channel. Cool. All right. Free money. All right, so we have a couple show and tell pieces today. And the first one is with Austin. Do you go by J. Austin or Austin? Austin Drake. So for the control room, this is the part where we have to cut to the not live stuff. Can you give us a thumbs up when we're ready? Can they hear us in there? Yes. And we will let Austin talk all about that. Because it's right here.
Hi everyone, my name's Austin Drake. Recently graduated from UW Stout back in December for animation, and for my senior capstone I created a 2D, 3D hybrid short film, and over the past few months I've kind of been tweaking at it and working on re-rendering all the 3D stuff, and now that it's finally done I haven't really been able to share with anybody, so I kind of wanted to share it tonight. My professor suggested submitting it to film festivals and stuff, so that is why I'm keeping it private for now. As much as I want to share it with as many people as I can, they said not to do that yet. So, but I can show all you as long as you don't go telling everybody you know. So I hope you enjoy what I've made.
If you're not
There should be audio, actually. There's the audio.
Ha ha ha! The sea is at our disposal. Come, first mate, hoist the sails. First mate?
Houston, we're maintaining aerodynamic trajectory. Ignition seems to be in order.
Be sure to monitor the change in...
Sis.
What are you doing?
Playing?
I told you we were playing pirates.
Well, I don't want to play pirates. I want to play astronauts.
If you're not gonna play pirates, then get off my ship.
I'm not in your ship. I'm in my ship. My cooler ship.
No matter.
I shall steer this ship myself into uncharted waters. Ah, looks like a storm's brewing on the horizon.
Yeah, a meteor storm.
What? What are you talking about?
Ow, stop. Hey, if you're not gonna be a pirate, can you at least not mess with my adventure?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me think. No.
Ah, that's it.
You're walking the plank.
Wait, how can I walk the plank? We're in zero gravity.
Huh? We are not in zero gravity. Now get down here and fight.
Nah, I'm good up here.
Haha! This ends now.
Kids, I made you some snacks.
Ah, hey.
Aha, just what I was looking for.
Step away from the chest. What could you possibly want my treasure for?
These crystals you have, they're more powerful than you can imagine. Pure Gobblegorgon gemstones. This is just what I need to return to Jupiter and fight the mighty space serpent.
Okay, first off, none of that is even real, nor sounds even slightly real. Second, you can't take my treasure. It's rightfully mine.
I'm gonna go ahead and take it anyway. Isn't that what real pirates do? That is what you wanted me to do, right?
Hold on. Did you say you were fighting a giant space serpent?
Yeah, pretty intense. You feel bad?
That I do. A mighty beast from the Mediterranean sunk my first ship along with my crew. And I've been searching for the beast ever since.
Well, shoot.
How's about we strike a deal? I provide you with these hobgoblin stones.
Globolian crystals, yeah.
And in return, you let me accompany you to slay this ferocious space beast.
Do we have an accord?
All right, come on. Don't worry, while you were sleeping last night, I modified your ship to be able to fly in space.
No, you didn't. That's impossible. I mean, wow, that's amazing.
So you've never been into deep space, have you?
No, I guess I never got around to it.
Well, I think you're gonna like it. It's a lot like the sea, a vast stretch of emptiness, and you'll probably get sick a few times.
thanks for watching. Not really. Thank you.
Okay, the second show and tell this evening is not here, so I will be standing in for him. His name is Scott Wenner. He works with us at Motion 504. Full disclosure, he's really cool, and I felt like this needed to be shown. And I also wanted to establish the precedent that you don't have to bring something that you made to show. Because I feel like people are, it is a little nerve-wracking to be up here. Especially if it's your own thing and you feel like everyone's judging you. So please judge this piece as much as you want. But here we go. Don't know. That got dark, huh? So about that piece, he did it by himself in about 3 weeks, and he told me that when he started, he only knew that he wanted to do something with animals. So he made a bunch of animals and was like, now what? And then he made that. So what's all your excuse? And we found out today that it was awarded a staff pick. So congrats to Scott. And now it is the moment you've all been waiting for. Alicia Allen!
Can you do me a solid? Can you control the speaker back there? Because I have that video first.
Okay.
So I actually have... Oh, geez. Okay. So I actually have a video that kind of goes over a bunch of things for everyone who's watching who isn't able to attend tonight, but also for anyone in the audience who's a beginner and wants some resources or wants to know at least what kinds of resources are available. speaker. Yeah. One sec. Can you turn it up so everyone can hear it? The red light kind of goes about halfway and it sounds good. Yeah. Enjoy.
Hello! Welcome to the first of hopefully many more intermediate After Effects learning sessions with myself, Alicia Allen. If you're in our live audience at MTN tonight, thank you so much for coming out. For those of you watching from the comfort of your homes, or your offices, or coffee shops, or wherever it is you may be, welcome. We've got a jam-packed session coming up for you where we'll be diving into a mixed bag of After Effects techniques, so stay tuned. But first, hi, my name is Alicia Allen. I used to be Alicia Reese, but I recently married my magnificent other and partner in crime, Emery Allen. And I am your presenter today. A little bit about me. I've been working in the motion graphics industry in Minneapolis for over 12 years. Currently, Emery and I are both creating commercial and broadcast animation with an absolutely fantastic and talented team at Motion 504. We also produce various animations via our own independent animation studio, Flora and Fauna. Additionally, I am one of a bunch of founding members of Nice Moves and Swim, both of which are great organizations filled with the best people working to strengthen the motion graphics community here in Minnesota, as well as surrounding areas. Fun thing to know about me, I despise winter, but I love a good puffer vest. Now that you know a little bit about me, let's talk beginner resources. Okay, real quick, if you're just starting out in After Effects, you don't know what buttons to push, and you're not sure how to move around in this wonderful program, you're in luck. We've got some recommended YouTube videos for you to check out. The first is a 2-part series. It's best suited for those looking to dabble in some After Effects. The series comes from Peter McKinnon, who is a YouTuber and photographer that teaches cool things about photography and cinematography, and even a little bit about After Effects. The second is a 4-part series, which is a little bit of a deeper dive into the animation tools within After Effects. The series comes from Tip Tut. Tip Tut is a YouTube channel where you can find tutorials, reviews, and resources for various Creative Cloud apps. Next, we got online educational options. In no particular order, we have School of Motion. School of Motion combines the best parts of a traditional brick-and-mortar school with technology that allows their students to live anywhere in the world and receive the best motion design training on the planet. Also, for anyone interested, they do have a beginner course, which is free. It kind of is like an overview of what motion graphics is. They also have a great YouTube channel. Next, we have MoGraph Mentor. MoGraph Mentor is an online motion graphics training program with an emphasis on career development. They save you time and money by connecting you to industry professionals who will work with you to grow your portfolio and your skill set. The program is for students who are looking to pursue a full-time career as a motion designer. And since the entire program is online, you can be a part of MoGraph Mentor from anywhere with an internet connection. And last but not least, we have Learn Squared, a new form of art education founded and powered by industry-leading experts. Go beyond simply learning what they've learned and learn how, from their perspective. Learn Squared is perfect for artists with a visual effects or user interface focus, but it's still in the world of motion graphics. Now there is a plethora of online education options for those looking to strengthen their work, but these are a few of my personal favorites, as they're taught by the best artists in the motion graphics industry. Next up are 2 resources I highly recommend for those looking to run their own business or freelance, which technically is a small business, folks. First up is Motion Hatch. In short, Motion Hatch is there to help designers become better at business. They have a podcast, which is a bi-weekly program hosted by Haley Akins, discussing the business side of animation for motion designers. They also have like the online community going on where you can chat with other designers. And the best part is that they have a bunch of resources, basically tools and materials to help you run your motion design business. They also have the freelancer contract bundle, which is forking awesome. Next up we have The Future. F-U-T-U-R. Don't you dare put an E on the end of this. No E. No E. It's the future, and in the future, there is no E. The Future is an educational platform where creative professionals can learn business principles. It's basically the future of business education for the creative entrepreneur. They have online video courses, toolkits, gear, coaching, a YouTube channel with tons. Like, if you weighed it, it wouldn't weigh tons, but tons of stuff. It's great. Check it out. The future is empowering creative entrepreneurs to live a sustainable life, doing what they love, not burning out, and making some freaking money. Now, before we dive into the live portion of our session, here are 2.5 helpful quick tips. They're not complicated, but they are useful. Tip number 1, create an After Effects start file. It can be so helpful, especially when working with other artists. So you create your folder system. You save that After Effects file in a central location. I've chosen a location which I have access to at work and at home. Then you set that up in your preferences within After Effects as your default start file. Wham bam, thank you Ram. You've got yourself automatic organization. Tip number 2, adjust your preview settings. Look, if you're previewing your work in progress animations as full res, full frame rate previews, you're taking way too much time. Reclaim your Netflix and chill time by dropping that resolution and your frame rate of your previews. Also, side note, if you're running out of time and you definitely need to deliver a work in progress to your clients, dropping your frame rate and your resolution just a titch is enough to get that render out the door. It will render faster while still giving your client a pretty decent picture of what's coming down the pipe. Bam! 2.5 little tips for you. I hope that they can speed up your workflows, giving you more time to enjoy being alive, or just more time to create more fascinating things. All right! As I've said, this presentation will hopefully be the first of many more, so definitely drop your suggestions for future sessions in the comments below, or if you're in the audience tonight, you'll have the opportunity to shout out your ideas at the end of our Q&A. This session in particular is gonna be more of a smorgasbord of possibilities than a detailed how-to of any one specific technique. Long story short, it's the speed dating of technique. Alright, let's get started. Bear with us for just a moment as we make our transition from this pre-recorded hoopla into our live session at the one, the only MTN in Minneapolis.
Thank you. So the main reason I pre-recorded that is because I wanted to save everyone like a good 20 minutes of how long it took me to actually say all that information. And I managed to cut it down to 7, so you're welcome. Tonight, there's a bunny in the audience, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to focus. Hi, Scamp. All right, so I am going to run through a project that I literally started about 3 days ago. It was kind of a challenge for myself because I knew I wanted to cover as many topics as possible tonight. Unfortunately, I didn't finish, but I definitely have more than enough to go over, and I actually don't even think we're going to get through everything I was hoping to get through. So more sessions will be in our future. Basically what I have here is an animation that I was like, how can I do the entire thing with only using distortions and your basic scale, rotate, and translate. Nothing, no fancy extra plugins that like cost $1 bazillion or $50. Although I am gonna plug a plugin that will save you tons and tons of time, and sometimes spending like $70 and saving 70 hours is totally worth it. Oh, thank you. My beauty lighting. So what I'm gonna do is kind of show where I had last left off on this animation, and then I'll kind of go through the different steps of how I've been going about animating it. Some of it I'll animate right here with you guys, because like I said, I didn't finish. So it is titled Distortion Snake because I'm super, super clever. And it's basically a snake that spins around in a little orby thing. Yeah, that's basically it. And it is a perfect loop, which I'll kind of go over some techniques on how you can kind of help yourself make perfect loops. Yeah, so let's get started. The first thing I did is I started by just sort of sketching out a rough idea. Actually, even before I started sketching out a rough idea, I sat down and I wrote down a bunch of words. Now, normally I would write down words of like, what kind of mood am I trying to go for? What kinds of colors am I thinking of? Like, what objects in the scene am I thinking of? And I'll just write it all down. And that helps me organize my thoughts, because when you're sitting and staring at a blank page and you've got all these different ideas floating around, if you don't set yourself some boundaries, it becomes really, really, really hard to actually sit down and focus and get something done in a short amount of time. So this... Actually, I'm going to not play it through here because it might take too long. But now I don't know where it is. Here it is. So, I sat down, I had my word, I knew that I wanted to use a bunch of distortions, so I wrote down every single distortion, and then I thought of objects that I could animate using those distortions. So I was thinking about like puppet pin tool, the wave distortion, ripple distortion, skews, bends, anything like that. And what I came up with is snake water foliage. And so this is my snake water foliage illustration. And I really didn't put too much of the style in this. I'm basically just trying to rough out what my alphas of my assets are. And then I personally really enjoy doing the styling in After Effects. One of the pluses to that is that it means that a lot of the effects that you use to kind of create your style are now animatable. But the downside means that usually it means it takes a little bit longer to render. For me, I'm kind of like, if the computer's rendering, I'm watching Netflix, so I'm okay with that. So yeah, then my first step was to animate the snake inside of the orb. And the main reason that I needed to start with that, well, I guess I could have started with the grass or anything like that, but I can't start with the water because the water is going to be reflecting everything else in the scene. So no matter what, the water had to be last. And I chose to eat the frog by animating a snake. Has anyone heard that saying before, eat the frog? It's about like tackling the hardest part of a project so that everything else feels easy after that. I ate the frog. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what I've got going on in here. First of all, I'm just going to kind of go over the layers. I won't go through these layers every time I enter a new comp or a new step, but I am going to show you kind of how everything's broken apart. So I've got a couple foreground grass layers, and right now they're not animated because we're just focusing on the orb. I also have a nice little alpha for my puddle here, which is kind of a lower opacity for now. And then I've got my orb, which is in its own little comp. I've got some middle ground trees, some background foliage, which is actually inside of a pre-comp that has even more stuff in it. So if I wanted to break out and animate each of these individually, I could. I don't, but I can if I want. Oops. I've got my basic ground plane, and then I've got some clouds, which I never actually got around to animating, but I'm hoping that there's enough time that we can animate those together. And then just like a background color, which is the base for everything. Now, let's get into the goodies, which is this orb and snake. Now as I open this up, actually, I took my pre-render out of here. One thing I really recommend, especially when you're working with distortion effects, especially like wave warp or liquefy or anything that's really render heavy, is to think of it as though you're working in another program and creating an asset for After Effects. So like I've done a lot of compositing in 3D, and when you get your 3D stuff, you don't get like the entire I mean, if you're working in Cinema 4D, you can, but you don't get the entire model and then After Effects does all the rendering. You get a rendered image and then you composite that in After Effects. So I treat distortion effects pretty much the same way. Anywhere I can package everything up into a pre-comp and then render that as its own little pass, I will, because that'll save me more time. Once I've got like something looking the way that I want, and I think there's a pretty good chance I'm not going to be going back and making minor tweaks, even if I am, I'll pre-render that out and I'll just set it aside, and it just speeds up the whole process. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop this in here so we can just scrub through and see what we've got. So what I would do is basically just drop this image sequence into the comp and then solo it. So now whenever I go to any of these other comps, I'm going to see that image sequence, and I don't have to, I see it's like super fast, I can click through, like no problem. If I tried to just do that without the image sequence, is not so easy. See, we gotta wait. I mean, it's still like not that bad because there's not a ton going on in here, but it's still not as instant as it was before, which would make tweaking anything else a big pain. Now I'm going to go into how I animated this, and the first thing I'm going to talk about actually is the snake. So I'm going to turn off a bunch of these other layers. Also, I don't know how many of you use color coding on your layers, but one thing you'll notice, which actually I kind of got lazy as I was working, but I like to keep my color coding consistent in all of my projects, so I've developed like a system where yellow always means it's an alpha. Pink always means it's a priority element. Purple always means it's a secondary element. I could turn it off and see generally the mood of my animation without the purple elements. They're just like the extra goodies. And then anything that's this gray color just hasn't been labeled yet. So we're going to talk about the snake. When I was doing this, the main reason I wanted to make a snake is because it's something that like kind of slithers, and I wanted to show one of the techniques I use to animate something moving along a path where it bends along with the path. Now, before I talk about that, there is a plugin called Boa that does just this. It's $70. I got it a few years ago and I have not looked back because it saves me so much time, and I actually recommend using Boa over the technique I'm about to show you. But if you don't have $70 and you need to bend something along a path and animate it moving along a path, there is a way to do that in After Effects using the puppet tool. So, I'm going to kind of open some videos. Actually, I'll show you just kind of real quick what I've got going on here. You can see I've got all my puppet pins, and I can actually just... it's killing my machine. Oh, wait. I forgot. I actually put bones on all of these. So right now I have my shy guy on there. So there's actually a lot more layers in here than I'm revealing. Maybe I don't need beauty lighting. I think let's turn this off. I don't need to look good. This needs to look good. Oh. How do I adjust the color? But I'm going to have to do that in like every comp.
I think it's, yeah, because you're supposed to be talking about the
Yeah. Well, anyways, so I have all these layers in here, but I actually have a bunch hidden. And these are the bones. How did I get these bones? Well, I'm glad you asked. I actually puppet pinned the snake, and then when I brought the snake with its puppet in here, with all its nice little puppet pins in here, I went ahead and used Duik, which if you're not using Duik, you should be, because it's free and it will save you tons and tons of time. So what I basically did is I added bones. Well, you select your puppet tool and all your points. I've already done it, so I can't show you this part, but then you'd click add bones, and it basically adds this little, all of these are hidden right now, but I'm going to turn them on. It adds these little pins, like pin things. Let's throw this up to full so you can see it nicely. And these pins basically become your controllers, so you don't have to keep digging and twirling down into your puppet. So again, I'll show that. If you go into your puppet and you wanted to move your pins, it used to be that you have to like come in here, twirl down your puppet, and then you come down here, twirl into your little distortion things, and then you can get to your position, you can animate your pin. But that's really annoying and super, super hard to work with. So I definitely recommend using Duik and attaching the bones to your puppet pin. And that gives me the ability to grab these little suckers. I'm actually going to drop it down to quarter again so we can do this real fast. And, ooh. Now I can move these. I'm just going to do it this way. And it changes the shape of my snake. So, I have a few videos that I'm going to show you of kind of how I built this. First I'm going to undo a bunch of times. Actually, I'm going to save a whole new version. There we go. Beep, beep. So, oh, actually, I skipped a little bit. When you're importing your Photoshop files, I find that it's really helpful to go ahead and right off the bat import it 2 ways. That basically means that I import it as a where every single layer in the Photoshop file are the size of the composition, and then I also import it where every single layer is the size of the actual painted part, the alpha'd part. And the reason I do that is because when you're working with distortion effects, if you're working with them on vector, like shape layers or vector elements, it's based on where your controller points are. That is based on your composition size. But if you are working on raster images, such as Photoshop files or JPEGs, your distortion effects are based on the dimensions of your raster image. Now, that's not like super, super important or detrimental, but I get really annoyed when I animate a distortion on a vector element and I think, that's perfect, it's gorgeous, I love it. I'm going to copy and paste that onto a Photoshop layer. And then what happens is that it's not the size of the layer itself is not the size of the composition. So then I have to like reposition like the start and end points of my distortion. And it's just annoying. So I super, super, super recommend bringing it in both ways so that if you are mixing and matching between vector and raster, your distortions can be copied and pasted between the layers. There's also moments where you want the layer you're distorting to be the size that it is. You don't want it to be the entire composition because it'll just take way too long to process. So yeah, that's just a little tip. Import 2 ways. All right. So now I'm going to show you the goodies. So, oops, wrong one. The first thing I'm going to talk about is how I built the snake composition, and then how I puppet pinned that so that I could create the loop that I was looking for. And I'm actually just going to kind of scrub through this. But basically, as you can see, what I did is I created a super, super, super long and skinny comp, and this is my snake comp. And then I went ahead and I just dragged the snake comp that I have. I dragged that down to this nice little make a new composition based on this layer button. And bam, now I have a new composition. And I go ahead and I relabel that my puppet builder. Now you can build your puppet inside of the comp where your snake or your object that you're puppet pinning is going to live. But what sucks about that is if you go ahead and you bone it and you do a whole bunch of stuff with it, it's a big pain if like you realize, oh crap, I need one more pin in here or anything like that. It's a big pain to have to like remove everything you just did so that you can add one more pin in and then redo it. So what I found is it's just keeping the snake puppet builder as your backup of your just clean, it's just the puppet pins. So you can jump back into that comp, add the pin where you need it, copy your puppeted thing back into your comp. You'll see in a second. Anyways, it's just super convenient. So I definitely recommend, like, if you're building puppets, puppeted items, especially for a technique like this, it's just nicer to have your puppet created in a comp. So I'm just going to kind of scrub through here. So before I set my pins, I know that I'm going to be moving this snake through. So basically, this super long skinny comp, this becomes my path. So the snake moves through the path. The path is not the snake. Now, what do I mean by that? We'll see. So what I do is I fill the entire composition. I actually just double click up here, and it will make a shape layer that fills your entire comp. It's perfectly proportioned and everything. So that basically means that the alpha of my comp is now the entire comp. Whereas before, it was the shape. The alpha of this was the shape of the snake. I don't want that. So now that I have my alpha filled in completely, I can go to my puppet builder comp. Bing! Which it's hard to tell, but oops, sorry. I had turned it off. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I get a little confused. That's normal. So now I'm in my puppet builder comp, which is the snake inside of an empty comp. And I'm just going to go ahead and start dropping pins. Now, as I started doing this, I realized my pins were getting really crooked, and I was like, oh man, I really, really, really need to create a guide. So I just drag a guide down. Oops. Eventually, I right-click on it. I don't know why sometimes it works great and sometimes it doesn't, but I'm basically trying to get onto this guide and then reposition it. And that's actually, I had locked my guides and I forgot. Oh wait, that isn't it. I'm not really sure what I did to make it work, but eventually I was able... Well, I'll show you in this one. So when you create a guide, you can actually right-click on that now, and you say Edit Position, and then I just like put in the comp width and divided it by 2. That's how I got halfway to my comp. That means I can draw a nice straight line, or I have like a nice guide. There we go. I don't know how I fixed it, but I was able to say, so my comp height is 150. I just say 150 divided by 2. That's perfectly centered now. And then I start dropping pins. As I was dropping these, I realized, like, holy crap, that's way too many pins. So you see that, like, I started doing it. I got about halfway. I was like, that's a lot of pins. I don't want to move that many pins. I'm lazy. I need less pins. So I just go to my puppet and delete it and start all over. So then another thing is, when I was going through here, I knew I didn't want to like waste time, like I want 10 pins, so I'm going to divide the comp into 10 and create 10 different guides. No, what I did is I held my fingers up to the monitor, and I was like, there's a pin, there's a pin. So these are about 2 Alicia fingers apart. Yeah, I've had, I think it was a bigger monitor. I've heard a lot of people like get really like huffy, and they're like, that's really bad for your monitor. I've been doing this for like 12 or 13 years now, and all of my monitors have been just fine. If they get a little smudgy, I just wipe them with one of those like things that are meant for monitors. It's fine, and it's much faster than dropping a guide for something like this. So I go ahead and I drop all my pins. I'm gonna fast forward through this. Oops. And then I can go back into my snake comp, and I can turn off that alpha lock thing. The little layer that made it so that it was the alpha of the entire comp rather than the snake. I turn that off. I jump back into my snake builder, and I say, hey, did this puppet work? I wiggle it. It worked. It's great. It's perfect. It works. It looks like a snake. So now I go ahead, I copy from my comp builder my puppeted snake, because I want to keep my original, and I paste that into my comp. And then I screw up and I do it again. And then, I don't remember if I got all the way through. Oh yeah, I take all the keyframes off. So one thing that happens is when you first establish all your puppets, it will automatically put a keyframe on every pin. And that's not like that big of a deal because eventually I add the bones and attach them and I never really go back into the puppet effect. But I've just found that it's really good habit to do that because you might find that one of your puppet pins is moving and you have no idea why. And it turns out it's because it was keyframed, you didn't know it was keyframed, you moved it later, and now it's got 2 keyframes, which means it's interpolating between those. And that it's just like asking for weird ass mistakes. Oh, no. I was trying really hard not to swear. Yeah, but now it's a midnight stream. Well, we tried. So yeah, as you can see, I actually did record myself adding the bones. So you just go ahead, you go into your puppet tool, you just have to select the word mesh. I'm pretty sure, not completely sure. And, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. I still can't remember where things are. So I'm like hovering around on Duik and I'm like, where are those bones? Is it in here? No. Is it in here? No. Here? No. Here? There it is. Add bones. I click it, it starts doing its thing. It's adding my bones. And now I have awesome little pins so I can move my snake around. I think that's all I did in this one. So now we'll move to the next step. So the next step, and I did skip a little bit here. I baked it. I'm pulling it out of the oven. It's like one of those cooking show magic things. So actually, I already have a baked snake here. And I already added some gradients. And mostly I added the gradients so that I can see where things are overlapping. And then I also animated my snake. I know I want this to be a 20-second perfect loop. So I have my snake start here. And I basically parented an exact duplicate of that snake. Oh, I keep wanting to. Yeah. Tricked me. So I have a perfect duplicate of my snake. And actually what I did is before I duplicated it, I basically have my snake. I move it the comp width, which is about 5,000, all the way keyframe that. And then I just copy and paste. So I had actually copied before I set the keyframe, and then I set my keyframe and then pasted my unkeyframed copy, and then I just parent that to the animated one. And that's how you basically get it so that it's like a perfect loop. Oh, awesome. This is a little bit of the magic, which actually I will loosely show you something. So before I added the gradient, I was actually going in and positioning it, and then I realized, oh, there were a couple flaws in the way that I had started to build it. And sometimes you get into something, and what you realize is, like, even if you're like an hour in, you realize, oh crap, this is not working, or I thought this was gonna be really fast, and it's not, and it's kind of a pain. So that was kind of the case with this. Actually, I only spent about 3 minutes doing it. I was about 3 minutes in, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do it this way. But basically what I did is I parented every pin to the next pin in line. So I'm basically creating kind of like an FK sequence between all of these bones. And I have the bones, like, so you can't really see them. But that's what I'm doing in this little area here. It's just parent, 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 parent. Then I can rotate, and I can kind of rotate it like an FK arm. And I thought, oh, this is going to be perfect because I don't want any weird stretching. I want to make sure that my pins stay roughly the same distance apart from each other, because if I put any kind of detailed texture on this, that's going to stretch too. But then as I was doing it, I was like, it's distorting anyways. So do I really care? I'll just put a gradient on it and it'll be fine. So everything I did in this video, I deleted and started over. Well, not from scratch, just the parenting everything to everything and then rotating. And I just decided, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to move it. I'm going to move things into the place that I want them to be. So I'm going to open this. Is this? Nope, that's the wrong one. So now I'm gonna go back in here. I've got my gradient on my snake. I've got it animated already, and I've kind of loosely placed how I want it to be. It did take me a while to position this. I know I'm kind of blowing through this, and it's making it seem like it took hardly any time at all. I probably spent an hour just positioning the snake pins so that it would look good enough, which good enough is always good enough. As you can see, I've got a little distortion here on the snake head, but I knew I was going to be adding some turbulent displaces, kind of making it look warbly, so I was just like, I don't care, that looks great, I love it, it's working. Another thing to note, which I'm going to try to show you in the actual After Effects comp, is when the way I got this to like be a perfectly looped path is by taking the very first pin and the very last pin and making sure that they were in the exact same position. Then I took the second pin and the second from last pin, and I kind of scooted them around until the edges of that comp perfectly lined up in a nice straight line. So I'll show you what that means. If we come in here, you'll see that there's some semi-transparent pins. That was to help me, but this right here, this is my first pin, and then I've got my last pin, which actually I did end up offsetting it a little bit. I think part of that was because I needed one of these pins of the second to be a little bit closer than is like kind of comfortable. But in the end, if we go, I just need to find a frame. I actually lined it up with the snake head, and you can actually kind of see a little bit of a seam here, but I don't care, looks fine. Oops. I'm going to grab this last pin and try to show you what I mean. So I'm unparenting it, and I'm going to separate this sucker. Oh, there's my seam. So yeah, I just kind of lined them up, and I was like, close enough, looks good. There's, I'm looking at this at quarter res right now, so it actually looks really good. But then if I drop it to here, you can actually see there's a little bit of an edge here. I'm getting really lucky because this is just a really good frame. But there are some moments where it kind of like, you can kind of see the seam a little bit. If you're doing cell, you expect to do cleanup. If you're doing 3D, you get glitches and you expect to do cleanup. The same is true for After Effects. Not everything you do is going to come out perfect and clean. So it's okay to have little like weirdness. All you have to do is at the very end, when you're really happy with how everything is go back and do a cleanup pass. Just fix them. How do you fix them? You can use like liquefy things in, or you can actually like clean it up on a per frame basis. It's not the greatest experience to have to like do cleanup, but it can get you to finished faster, because it might take you like 1 or 2 hours to do the cleanup, but it could take you like 4 or 5 hours to try to find a solution where you don't have to do cleanup at all. I mean, one of those is faster. So yeah, I make messy stuff all the time. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go back to the video. So we've got our loop here. Oh, I guess that was it. That was it. So that's how I animated the snake. I'm going to go ahead and shy these layers again. Oh wait, actually I'm going to unsolo these. Which, by the way, this little, like, turning this little thing on, that just means solo these layers in this composition for anyone who's kind of a beginner. Next, I am going to turn my alpha back on. So I have this like comp alpha. I don't have it on these two things because usually I will solo just this one layer. The comp alpha is just so that I can have all these layers and I don't have to have an alpha on every single thing. I'm not really a fan of the layering an alpha every single time. Sometimes you just have to. But whenever possible, I like to use a comp level alpha, and I like to create things as assets rather than everything all in one comp. But that can only really work if you've kind of got a general plan. Let's see, what else? I am going to show you how I made these wonderful mixing colors. So right now I have a pre-render in here, and it's just like a bunch of warbly stuff. And I'm going to really quickly show you how I did this, and then also kind of explain ways that you can use it. So I just have a shape layer, and it's the star, which you can find in here. It's right there, shape layer, star. The shape layer then has a it has a fill to give me the color, and then it has a turbulent displace on it. And then inside of here, I actually animate the evolution. And if I hit U, I can see my keyframes. So basically, the keyframes I have in here, it goes from 0, and then it goes to 1. It moves, basically. When you spin this, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to spin this little slider here. Oh, it moves your stuff. Now, I have it crazy cranked up. So if I turn off this turbulent displace, it's kind of hard to see, but it's basically just a star. I'm going to go ahead and move this layer here. So it's just a star. It's like nothing fancy. It could have been a circle. It could have been anything. Probably would have looked pretty much the same. I cranked my amount up to 2,000, which is crazy, and also takes a long time to render. But that's okay, because I'm going to pre-render it. It's just an asset. And it's an asset I can use multiple times in multiple ways. And then I added a fast box blur. That's just to kind of like blend these colors together, give me kind of like a nice mixing of the colors. So yeah, that's how I did that. Oh, and then I did some color correction after the fact, because I was kind of eyeballing the colors, and then when I saw them in the comp, I was like, nope. But that's okay. I'll just fix it on the asset. So I used that to kind of throw behind the snake, and then I also used it again up here to throw in front of the snake. And I did use the orb. Where is it? Well, I don't know why I can't see it, but it right here, you can see the path. It's actually the same thing as like what I'm using for my alpha, which is just a circle. It's a shape layer circle, which means I can add a stroke to this and control the stroke. So basically what I did is I knew that I wanted to have sort of like a Fresnel effect. So on reflective objects, they actually reflect more on the edges that's facing away from the camera than they do on the direct, which is facing the camera. It's like a nice way if you're trying to create like any kind of reflective object. It feels more right if you have the reflections or the colors or whatever it is you're doing stronger on the edges. So this is just a shape layer with the stroke blurred. And I didn't even care that it was falling outside of this, because none of this matters, because everything that counts is inside of this circle. And then I did the same thing for the part in front. So it's like way stronger. And then I also have like a layer in here that's my base color. And then I have another circle that's my inner glow to help the... I realize that in here it looks like it's easier to see the snake, but in the comp it's easier to see... Oopsies, wrong one. It's easier to see with this nice little kick light behind it, which is just a blurred circle. Nothing too fancy. Then I added a bulge distortion, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a circle that you can use to push out or push in. And I like to use it for lens distortions or to try to kind of make something feel more circular. And then I have some shadows and some highlights. I'm just going to turn the alpha back on. It's kind of hard to see, but these are my shadows and these are my highlights. And these are created by just using some layer styles. Oh wait, that's in the shadows. I put in my trees too, because I just like to like go the extra mile, even though you can't even see it. It was actually probably not worth the extra stuff, but I knew I was going to be pre-rendering the orb anyways, so I was like, why not? Add it in. If I don't like it, I'll just re-render. And then the highlights are just layer styles. a couple of them. So this is the first one. It's just bevel and emboss. And then I played with the settings until I got this. And the main reason I did this is because I wasn't totally sure if I was going to animate the sort of warbling of the bubble with the shape layer, because they have like a wiggle paths, or if I was going to do it as a turbulent displace. I went with turbulent displace, so I could have probably just painted this. But it is something that's kind of nice. Yeah. Oh, nothing. It is just set in the mode here. It's set to stencil alpha. And then you have to make sure that it is turned on, which normally for alphas, you want your alpha layer turned off. But if it's your comp alpha and you want it at the very top and you want it to be visible and you want this to say, it's like either stencil alpha, stencil luma, silhouette alpha, silhouette luma. So silhouette would exclude everything, or would keep everything on the outside of the circle, and stencil, it keeps everything inside of your object, which is, I realize it's kind of hard to see. Here, let me see. No, I can't see it. I'm not going to mess with those layers. Oh man, really? 5 minutes to the Q&A though, right? Okay, in that case, I'm not going to show any more of this. I definitely screwed something up, but that's okay. Oh wait, no I didn't. Looks fine. I'm going to go ahead and throw this. Well, actually, first I'm going to really quick. So I talked about how like I used the warble to create those lighting effects. I also added a more subtle, so before my amount was at like 1,000, and here it's at 6. It's barely there, but it's there. And that's just to kind of like add some kind of like nice gelatiny movement to this. And again, it's the same deal. I set a keyframe at the beginning at 0. I set one here in the middle at a much higher number, and then I go back to 0. And the reason I do that is so that it loops. So I know we're going to run into Q&A soon. So what I'm going to talk about really quick is the loop checker, which is basically a comp that I create, and it's not very long, and it's where I take my end composition and I butt it up the end of it to the beginning of it. So that way I can hit, actually I'm not going to do it with this whole comp because it might take a little too long, so I'm just going to grab this. Oh, and a nice thing about setting it up this way is that I can alt drag drop pretty much anything into here, and it will like load it up and it'll be ready for me to check. So I can go in here. I think my render might have been a little messed up, so oh no, it's fine. It's a perfect loop. Voila. This is how I know my loop is perfect, because it's not jumping. If it wasn't perfect, it would jump as it switches from the end to the beginning. So that's really, really, really handy. You can do it with individual elements, so you can check them really fast before you render them. Then you pre-render them, and you're good to go. I think we should probably just jump into the Q&A. If there's anything you see in here, I do have the puddle where I started to animate it. So if anyone has any interest in knowing how that was built, I can show you. Otherwise, literally anything. Ask me anything. I will do my best to answer it.
And we have a Q&A mic this time. So.
Yeah.
I'm Kai, concerned citizen. My question is, how do you get grain to look good? Because I was having a problem last week where when you're compressing it to H.264, it, the way video compresses, it just doesn't look good. So most of the stuff I end up doing, I don't really end up animating the grain because of that. But this looks really great.
Oh, that's awesome. Because actually, in this render, I didn't like it. I thought it was a little bit too grainy. So what I did, I wanted the grain to be finer. So actually, I haven't re-rendered since, like the whole thing. But I went into the one, because I kind of liked it everywhere. But I didn't like it on the orb itself. So I went into the orb and I doubled the size of the composition. And I knew it was going to cost me on render time. But like I said before, render time is Netflix time. Like, I'm watching The Office. It's a really long series. I've got time. So this grain is actually all done through the blending mode dissolve. So for example, the mixing colors here, if I set this to normal, it's actually just a blurry image. And then what I do is I set it to dissolve, and it creates this nice graininess. And if it moves, the noise moves. If you want it to move the whole time, even if your image isn't moving, you can set it to dancing dissolve. I kind of don't like it. It's a little bit too busy for me. I kind of only want the grain to move if the image is moving. But either option is good, and it really just comes down to what your taste is. As far as how to make it look good, always, it is really hard. I did notice that even though all my layers are the same size, well, I guess my orb was a little bit smaller, but most of my layers were the same size. The grain looked good on the stuff in the foreground, but it's actually not on the background right now because I hadn't gotten into doubling the size of those, but it just looked way too big on the background stuff. And so I have like my own background thing in here, and my plan was to just double the size of this comp and then do the same thing, render it out as a pre-pass. Sure. Oopsies. So I turned off my orb. I'm just going to grab all these and then go to dissolve. Oh, I'm at quarter res, sorry. Oh, I have, I think this one too. I might have to go into these individual ones. Oh, there we go. That's actually what it was looking like, and I did not like it. It was not looking good. Which I'm actually like, I feel like I must have added another blur in here somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. I kind of like get into the zone and then I start adding stuff, and I'm not really, like, even though I was trying to record every step and like make sure that everything was logged, there were probably about 2 or 3 hours where I was like, this is awesome, and I didn't document any of that. But yeah, does anybody else have any other questions? Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh wait, we have a mic, sorry. I keep forgetting there are people watching this on the internet.
Sorry about the internet. So on your dancing dissolve layer, used a star shape.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific reason you use a star, or could you use any other shape and it would have done the same thing?
Yeah, you can use any shape. I just thought it was going to be more special if I used the star. And then I ended up scaling it so big so that it filled the whole screen because, actually, I'll just show you. In the comp, when you scale the star down, it shows like larger gaps in it. Mixing colors. Click. So if I scale this down, it just becomes, oh here, let's solo this one. It just becomes less and less. Because this is a vector layer, and I'm using a distortion. So it's based on the composition rather than the individual layer. But yeah, no, there's nothing really special. I just thought it would be fun. If they had a unicorn shape, I would have used that.
Ready for the next question?
Yeah.
Hello, YouTube. Real quick, and maybe this is a pretty simple question, but when you were doing the snake going along the pathway, is there a way to determine whether it passes over or underneath itself? Was that I don't know if that's a
Yes.
do-it thing or...
So
how's
that was
work?
something I definitely regretted not just going ahead and dealing with right away. That's something where it would get, ooh, wow, this got messed up. Actually, I'm just going to go into my builder. So I have my puppet builder here. And I have my snake, and I have my puppet. If you click on these, I'm pretty sure, then you got to go to your puppet tool over here. Hey. So, do you know if that's possible? I swear it is. Where you tell something to be in front of or behind. It's like, I know it has to do with like the things in here. I usually, if you ever run into problems, the best thing you can do is like search YouTube or Google. I do know it's possible though. So it would be a little bit more complicated, and for a situation like that, it might not be a good idea to do your bones right away, because when you apply the bones from Duick, remember all those like helpful little pins? It makes it so that you can't really go back and adjust the individual like settings of each pin, or maybe it is possible and I haven't gotten that far. But as far as I know, it's better to not have any bones or pins or expressions or anything, or sorry, I said pins, but we're dealing with pins. It's better not to have any bones or expressions on your pin until you've decided how you want it. So what you could do is like just not add the bones, go and lay it out into the path that you want. So here, actually, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to copy my snake, go into a new composition, call this Can We Do This? Paste it, go to my effect. I still need to get one of those cool like plugins or whatever for my computer so you guys can see what quick keys I'm hitting. It would be nice. I would love to know what quick keys I'm hitting too. So I'm just going to go ahead and loosely do this. It's not going to look great, but we're going to just see if we can get him to go. Oops. I thought that was this pin, but we want him to go over one and under the next. This looks so good. Last one, and I'm calling it. Oh. There's one hidden behind the anchor point. Okay. I'm pretty sure my snake should be animated. Oh, tricky. I'm just going to go like this. So he's moving. And I want this pin to be... Oh, it used to be a spray bottle. Ooh. Nope. Ooh, what did I just do? Oops. I don't know why it's freaking out, man. Quit freaking out. Oh, thank you. Let's call this one a fail. But there, I'm 100% certain. Let's see what we can find on Google. How about that? Can I control the Z space?
It's the puppet overlap tool.
Puppet overlap tool. Let's Google that.
It's just the last one in that drop down.
I know, but it keeps giving me a weird error message, so I'm going to delete that comp. But there you go. This can show you how to do that. One of these, any of these, probably, I'm guessing. But yeah, that is something that I regretted not controlling, because I have it basically going under every time, and I think it would look way cooler if if like on this part it went under and then over and then under and then over. And that's where maybe not having the bones right away so that you can control your over under and then adding the bones. Lower. Yep. Or over. Each successive one is over the next one. Yep. Cool. I feel like I failed but also answered the question. It's a nice feeling. I'm also going to delete this Can We Do This because it don't like me.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, this is awesome.
Alicia, how do you deal with After Effects as a render order, especially when you're getting effects that aren't, things are happening differently than what you expect, like transforms and effects swapping if you're using a continuous raster inside of another comp, and do you try to avoid stuff overall to coincide with
like
that?
If you have an effect inside of a pre-comp and then you're trying to do another effect on that pre-comp but you have continuous rasterize. I have run into problems like that. That's the whole like, oh, I do something a certain way and then I get to the point where I'm like, oh, time to delete it and start all over because it's not working. I mean, I run into it, but yeah, I think I usually either double the comp size and then don't continuously rasterize. Yeah, I feel like that's like the easiest and quickest solution. Although, let's be real, sometimes you don't want to do that, like especially if you're having an issue, like let's say you've got a lot of pre-comps that you need to do that with. I don't know, because I also kind of like that. Like sometimes what I'll do is I'll scale something using the transform tool, and then I do want to undo that scale because some things don't recognize the scale, so you can, if a distortion or an effect happens in like a circle and you need it to happen in an oval, you can scale the thing double size, do your effect, and then add another transform to scale it back. The image somehow doesn't have any loss of quality, or at least that I can't see it, but the effect is like affected by those other effects. It's weird. I don't know. I honestly don't know how After Effects works. I just click buttons until I get what I want.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, another question. This is so fun, you guys.
Hogging it over here. Hi. So I know you said you didn't have a whole lot of time and weren't really able to go over the water part, but could you just summarize it really fast?
Yes. So I was pretty happy with the water. Basically, if, let's say hypothetically, we have like the entire scene laid out and we're just like, we love how this looks, we need it to be reflected in the water. Let's go in. Oops, I was in. Sorry. I'm going to close all these extra comps because they're confusing me. Animate the sky, animate the murder, snake and orb, sketch. Okay, so now I've got, I'm in the animate the foliage. Sorry. I'm going to search puddle, build the puddle. So, my last step, build the puddle, is this. And basically what I did is all those layers I had for the background, I pre-composed, obviously except for the puddle because the puddle's not going to reflect in itself. So these are all the background elements. These are the things I want to render. And I also, it's hard to tell, but the orb itself is in here reflecting. But if you were to just take this background as is and flip it, where the bubble bottom is too close to these trees. So like, see, this is where the bottom of the trees, it's hard to tell. Anyways, I'm going to show you. So I go inside my puddle, and first let's cover getting the reflection in there. To do that, I've got like my base puddle. I put a nice little gradient on there so that everything I do kind of has a little bit of a sheen, kind of like water would do. And then I have my reflection, which is actually my background duplicated, but the orb is moved so that it reflects in the right way. Because it's not just like reflecting straight down. There's Z space to take into consideration too. So I cheated it. That way I can have my nice horizon here, but my orb looks like it's coming from the center of the pond, which in the space is where it looks like the orb is. Then I have a little shadow on here just to add more of that sheen back in. And then I added a bank shadow, and that was more just so I could blend in the edge of the puddle itself. So I've got this nice like dark edge here. That's without it. That's with it. And then the ripples. Oh, one thing I forgot to talk about. Sorry, I will get to the ripples. I have a ripple effect on this reflection pass. So this is the reflection pass, and this is without the ripples, and this is with the ripples. And this is where I did that transform technique where I needed my ripples to happen in an oval. But the ripple effect, it works in a circle. So what I did is I scaled it up, and then I also used a transform to scale it back down. There's just too little love in the world. Now, the ripple reflections is actually, I'll just go this way. It's a star! It's a star, and then it's all messed up. Does it need to be a star? No, but stars are awesome and they're fun to play with. So I used a turbulent displace to kind of give it this like warbly, holy like mess. It's not animated, so it doesn't really cost very much render time. And then I threw a ripple on there, which basically automatically animates itself right here. Or what you can do is turn the wave speed off here. Like if you're working with a weird duration and you need it to loop perfectly, then what I would recommend is turning your wave speed off and animating your phase. And then you would have to like line it up so that it makes a perfect loop. But that's one way that you don't have to do the math on what the speed needs to be. Also, sometimes you want it to move faster, but you also want it to be a perfect loop. But yeah. And then that is a 2.5D layer just rotated in space like that. And it's set to dissolve, and I added a little bit of a blur so I get some noise on there. There's not a lot of noise. If I blurred it more, there'd be a lot. Are we feeling the love today?
Yeah.
Is ripples, more ripples. Yeah, that's basically it.
I think we got a call.
Yeah. The music is playing. They're trying to sing us off. They're like, get out of here. You're done. Thank you so much for everyone. Yeah. Thank you.
Great job. Did an amazing job. I'm just going to kind of rush through this so that we can go get some love somewhere. But last thing I'll say is that we are always looking for new people to spotlight, new projects to spotlight, or people to stand up here and talk. So if you are that person, or if you know someone that could be that person, just email us at submission@nicemoves or let's get together at Nice Moves, either one. There's still like 1.5 pizzas, so let's go eat it.